Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome back to the Chess Olympiad in 2024 that's going on now in Budapest in Hungary. We're now in the last two rounds of this epic chess event, and in the round 10 we have the epic derby, the incredible match between Team USA against Team India. Before the round 10, I prepared here for you the current standings of this event, in which India is in the lead, has 2 match points more than Team USA, and which means if India wins their match today against the USA, I think India is the winner of the Chess Olympiad in 2024, because you see India has already played against Uzbekistan, but also has already played against China. Which is then basically unstoppable. All of the other teams have already 2 losses. India has only played 1 draw against Uzbekistan yesterday. So if they're winning their match against the USA today, India is the winner of this beautiful chess tournament, because we should really watch now also this other criteria. The first criteria is of course how many match points you get, but the other criteria is the Zonborg-Berger system, where you see India has already gained 322 points, and India, believe me or not, is in this whole event unbeatable. No one on any board has lost any games through the whole event so far. So no one, Vidit Santosh Gurati, here Arjun Ergaisi, Ramesh Babu Pragnananda, Gukesh, they didn't lose any games so far. And as I said, now it's a very tense situation. If India wins now this one against the USA, India has a beautiful throne in this amazing chess event. And I wanted to first start with an amazing position yesterday, where Arjun Ergaisi on the 3rd board plays against Shamshidin Vokhidov, and this was a critical position because both of them were long clock. They wanted to reach additional time after move 40, and we're now in move 37, where Arjun Ergaisi had a couple of seconds on the board, and also Shamshidin Vokhidov had also not so much time on the board. This was the critical position where Team India could have sealed already the event. In this position, Arjun Ergaisi missed here the tactic with bishop to f7. He played rook to e3, continued the pressure, but bishop to f7 would be already a lost game here for black, because then you play something like this, and then you simply pick up the exchange, and from this point on I think it's game over here for black. So the yesterday's game between India and Uzbekistan ended with a draw. All 4 boards were draw, I think. Fair result when we watch now the whole match. I think Uzbekistan also played a great game. Also, the spectacular derby between Gukesh and Nodirbek Abdusatorov also ended with a draw. So we're starting now with the round 10, with the amazing game between Arjun Ergaisi on the 3rd board against Dominguez Perez Liner. Very intense battle. We know how Arjun Ergaisi is playing in this event. He has now already 7 wins and 2 draws only. Immortal performance by the young chess player. Very spectacular games we have seen in this event by him for sure. So let's see now what happened. Arjun Ergaisi against Dominguez Perez Liner. So Team India versus Team USA. We have now d4 by Arjun, d5, c4, the Queen's Gambit, Slav defense, Queen's Gambit decline, knight to f3, knight to f6, and now knight to c3, the 3 knights variation. Now we have now the Chabanenko variation, trying of course to play something like d takes c4, and then put more pressure with b5, fixing simply the structure here on the queen side. There are basically now, I think, 2 good approaches here by white. One is the positional approach with c takes d5, where the game becomes more static. You see the pawn structure is already symmetrical. We have 2 versus 2 situation on the queen side, but also we have the same pawn count also on the king side. So the position is symmetrical, with not so many, I would say, opportunities to win the game. So that's why Arjun went into a more aggressive line, immediately gets the spaces here on c5, which is now the so-called advanced system against the Chabanenko variation. We have now the move b6, and now c takes b6, and you see the position is now more imbalanced. The pawn structure is not symmetrical. We have at least some attacking chances. At least the position gets more and more dynamic. We have now knight from b to d7, and now a3. Here good preparation by Arjun Ergaisi, because if you don't pick up the pawn immediately, if you try something like c5 to somehow break in the center here, then would simply take, and now you have really tough time to get the pawn back on b6. So now also the d5 pawn is hanging, so not a good continuation, of course, here for white. So that's why Dominguez Perez liner played, of course, the best line. Queen to b6, knight to a4, and you see now in this sequence you have several weaknesses already in black's camp. First of all, what we should notice, the c6 weakness as a backward pawn, but also the weak square that can be occupied, of course, by many pieces here by white. So already unbalanced game, as we said. Knight to a4 here by Arjun Gaisi, queen to c7, and now an interesting line g3, going immediately for the bishop to f4 idea, because the queen is a little bit exposed already here. Very tense battle between these two top grandmasters. e6, bishop to l4, and now bishop to d6. Here Dominguez Perez liner covers now the diagonal, and now Arjun plays a beautiful e3, fixes simply his bishop. Wants, of course, to go into maybe this lines, bishop to f4, g takes f4, knight to e5. Then you would have a great control of the c5 square, but also of the e5 square, and maybe in some lines you could also attack the g file. Also with b4 you can maybe fix further the c5 square. And when the dark square bishops are off the board in any of these lines, I would say white is always much better, because white has the better light square bishop in these types of structures. Look at this light square bishop has a great activity. On the other hand, this light square bishop by black, it's blocked by its own pawn structure, so it would be a bad bishop strategy that white could apply here. So after move e3, here a5 by Dominguez Perez liner, great theoretical novelty, I would say. Good move. He is trying to get rid of his bad piece. As we said, the bishop on c8 is not a good piece, so he's trying to trade it off for Arjun Gaisi's good piece on f1. We have now rook to c1 here by Arjun. What should you do? If you continue down now with bishop to a6, this move would be, I think, a little bit rushed still, although it's a great strategic concept for black. This move would be too fast in the game, because then after bishop to x6, rook to x6, we can trade off even further pieces. The rook gets exposed. You see, you didn't castle, you still have your king in the center of the board. You're trying to escape. Then queen to c3, we put more pressure against this one, put more pressure against this one, and now you're forced to play basically the move rook to a6, because you cannot play rook to c8. Then this one is hanging. After rook to a6, then knight to e5, and you cannot take. That would be the beautiful sequence here for white. Knight to e5, then d takes e5 wins the piece, so not a good continuation. This one is weak, so from this point on, I think white should be much better. Nothing spectacular, of course, but this move bishop to a6, I think, would be rushed here. So after rook to c1 that Arjun played, that's why castling by Dominguez Perez liner. Now we see the basic strategic problems, I think, of the Chabanenko variation here by black. First of all, c6 weak, and also what we should mention, the square on c5 is weak, can be always occupied by white's minor pieces. We have now bishop to b7. Dominguez Perez liners is protecting now the pawn, bishop to d3, and now h6 castling. What should you do? If you play bishop to f4 again, although white has castled now and has now a slightly weakened structure in front of the king, still I think the whole concept with knight to e5 is working here for white. Getting this square, also knight to c5 is working here for white. Maybe even some lines king to h1, rook to g1, hitting the g file. Strategically, I think it's very unpleasant now for black to play the game. So here after castling, we have now rook from f to e8, rook to d1, and now e5. Dominguez Perez liners is now trying to simplify the game to break in the center of the board. Here after d takes e5 and knight to e5, Dominguez goes for the attack against the bishop here on d3, and many of us, I think, would even go for the trades of here pieces in the center of the board into a more simplified line. But I think the downside here in this line is that actually in one moment maybe black could prepare a rook to c8, then c5, maybe even knight to d7, and maybe d4, liberating this diagonal. So Arjun, after move knight to e5, played an awesome idea. That's the move that I think liked the most here. Here he showed, I think, great position understanding. He played a powerful knight to d4. Giving up now his light square bishop, really wild stuff. Usually you don't want to give up, of course, your light square bishop when you have already played g3, when you played the fianchetto. Usually you don't want to, of course, weaken the structure like this and give up then the bishop that's covering the squares that you have weakened. After knight to d4, here Dominguez Perez liner went with knight to d3. Here Arjun took queen, bishop to d6, queen to d6, and after rook to d3, what Arjun applied here is actually a beautiful bad bishop strategy. Great stuff by Arjun, because he notices, okay, maybe I have light square problems, but it's very, very hard for black to expose these weaknesses. If you go into any lines with bishop to c8, if you're trying to maneuver your bishop towards this side of the board, then always the pawn on c6 is weak. That's, I think, the beautiful strategy here that Arjun applied. He showed a really great positional understanding. As I said, he's saying you don't have so much time in order to somehow attack my king. First of all, you have to solve all of your positional problems on the queen side, especially about the pawn on c6, but also, as we mentioned in the beginning, with the weak square on c5. So two holes, I would say, here in black's camp that Dominguez Perez liners has to solve. Now we have bishop to a6 hitting the rook, rook to b3. Another great move here by Arjun. Rook to c3 would be very dangerous, seems tempting, maybe to go for this pawn. But actually, after bishop to b5, you cannot go for the pawn on c6 because you get a counter-attack with knight to e4. And then after knight to e4 and knight to d4, if you're trying to escape, then after knight takes c3, still you see the bishop on b5 would be protected, and black would gain the exchange and would be much, much better here. I would say even completely winning position here for black. That's why after bishop to a6, here rook to b3. Great move by Arjun, going also now for the b6 weakness that black has here in the position. We have now knight to d7, now comes knight to b6, and now c5. Interesting choice here by Dominguez Perez liner, but you see he had too many weaknesses. Even if you try knight takes b6, then rook to b6, and there's now simply too much pressure against this weakness on c6, so there's nothing that can be done. I think in a simplified line where many pieces are traded off, maybe the queens are off the board, then you don't have to worry so much about your problems. Then afterwards, trading off the queens, for instance, is your main idea here. If you get this pawn on c6, I think completely winning position here for white. So that's why for knight to b6, here Dominguez Perez liners tried a dangerous line with c5. Arjun takes now the exchange, but has now really to solve now these problems on this side of the board. And you see now finally Dominguez Perez liner is advancing the pawns. Now this pawn on c6 is not there anymore, it's on c5. In some lines, bishop to b7 can be played, maybe liberating, finding this diagonal. Actually, this exchange sacrifice that Dominguez Perez liner plays is actually the suggested move by top engines. Really great stuff also here by black. Knight to b5, attacking the queen. We have queen to c6. You see now Dominguez is playing now really sharp idea. He wants to create this queen and bishop battery and advance the pawn and deliver checkmate on g2. Arjun plays now a4, a good move, and now g6, and this is not a good move now by Dominguez Perez liner. From this point on, I think the game becomes a one-way ticket in white's favor, because here Dominguez Perez liner did not continue his plan that he should have played. He should have somehow cleared these files, these diagonals with c4. Then after something like rook to c3, you play knight to e5, and look at this. I'm not sure if anyone is really pleased to play now this position with the white pieces. The engine gives here always a slight edge for white, but I think in human chess, knight on f3 could come, knight on d3, very unpleasant position now for white. But after move a4, here g6 was played, and now Arjun played a beautiful rook to c3. If you try something like rook to b8, maybe to go for this one, then we could play e4, and e4 is now the liberating line for white. You see now also in the later stage of the game how Arjun will play this beautiful e4 move. e4 is a good idea because it splits the pawn chain, and what black has as an advantage here is of course this mobile structure that could be rolling in the center of the board. Now after move e4, you don't have to worry. You give up a pawn, but now you go for this one. After a couple of trades of pawns, maybe you can get this one, but the game becomes more and more simplified. That's the position that Arjun wants to get. Of course, he doesn't want to have the queens on the board where you have so many light square problems in the position. So here, after rook to c3 that Arjun played, we have bishop to b5, a takes b5. Again, not a good move here by Dominguez Perez liner. He's giving up now his light square bishop, which should be, I think, his main strategic attacking idea here, at least attacking the slice square problems. After 8 takes b5, queen to b5, rook to d1, attacking the pawn. We have now queen to c6, rook to d3, attacking again the pawn on d5, knight to f6. Only moves here for Dominguez Perez liner, and now again this beautiful idea e4, splitting the pawn chain. Arjun doesn't want to tolerate now this mobility of this pawn on c5 and d5. What should you do? If you play d takes e4 here Arjun calculated everything like a machine. Then you get rook to d6 and you lose decisive material, game over. So that's why here knight takes e4 had to be played, but now this one is hanging, and you see now finally black doesn't have any more this beautiful structure. Now the rooks are playing in an open game. Obviously much better position, I would dare to say here, even completely winning for Arjun Ergaisi. We have now rook to e8, and now we have rook to d8, knight to g5 here by Dominguez Perez liner, going for ideas like knight to f3 that are still dangerous. Rook takes e8, and now of course queen takes e8 deflects now the queen here from the attack of white king on the king side. After queen takes e8 here, Arjun played queen to d3, covering of course his slice course because there could be some problems. He wants to of course have a great control of the f3 square. We have now knight to e6, and now pinning simply the knight on the e file. We have now h5, we have rook to d6, and now after queen to b5, now queen to e5, protecting the pawn, and in some lines maybe even threatening rook takes e6 as a long-term plan, as a tactical possibility. Is of course also a good move here by Arjun. h4 here by Dominguez Perez liner. He is trying of course somehow to mess up a little bit the pawn structure in front of the king, but Arjun says, okay, show me what you got. G takes h4, we have now queen to c4, and now h5. So here Arjun is trying to do the same. He's trying of course also to mess up a little bit the structure and then have access to black's king, maybe with the rook or maybe with the queen. We have now queen to g4, we have king to f1, and now of course you don't want to trade it off. Queen to h5 leads into a simplified position for white, where white will simply pick up this pawn, maybe go for this one, will maybe create a passer. So not a good continuation here for black. After king to f1 here that Arjun played here, I think Dominguez Perez liners makes a new mistake here. He played g5, although maybe a slightly better way to proceed is with queen to c4, and then after queen to e2, queen to f4, at least complicating somehow. But after move g5, Arjun played now a beautiful move h6, breaking through with the threat of queen takes e6, and then queen to g7. Pardon me, rook takes the knight on e6, and then queen takes g7. Beautiful checkmate pattern. Here we have king to h7. If you try now queen to c4, then white will simply go like this. Will also go towards this side of the board, and again you're pretty much forced, I think, to trade off the queens, which is of course again in white favor. But after move h6 here, king to h7 was played by Dominguez Perez liner, and now there is a huge problem now also for Arjun. Many of us, I think, would play this line rook takes e6, but suddenly it's not working, because first of all, what black would do then is to play queen to c4, and you pretty much forced to play king to g2, then again a check, then again king to f1, again a new check. If you don't do that, if you go towards the center of the board, then actually look at this queen to e6, and actually black is suddenly winning. You don't have, of course, the move queen to g7 because you're lined up here on the e file. You would be forced to trade off the queen. So that's why after king to h7 here, Dominguez Perez liner prepared really also dangerous stuff. Arjun played now rook to d7, threatens of course after potential king to f6 also to pick up the pawn. Queen to c4 now finally by Dominguez Perez liner, and now king to e1, although probably queen to e2 is a little bit better. Again, hoping to go into the endgame stage. After something like queen to c1, you can also go with queen to d1, and if for instance you take, then white will also pick up this one and would finally include also the queen into the game. But okay, king to e1, still white is much better. The evaluation is +2 in white's favor. So if Arjun continues to play the game like this, he's of course the winner of this game. We have now queen to b4, we have now rook to d2, and now in order to stay in the game you have to play king to g6, keeping of course your king connected to the f7 pawn, and you're trying somehow to hold this position. But here Dominguez Perez liners play now the move queen to g4. Arjun continues with rook to e2, although though there was also beautiful opportunity to go with rook to d8, threatening rook to h8, and you cannot pick up, of course, again the rook because you get checkmated on g7. This is not working. So here, okay, here Arjun plays rook to e2, the second best line, I would say here. And here, queen to g1, finally by Dominguez Perez liners. We have king to d2, king to g6, and now a beautiful follow-up here by Arjun Ergaisi, h4. He's trying, of course, now simply to open the position in front of Black's king, include the rook into the game, and of course, maybe in some lines even deliver checkmate. After h4, we have g takes h4 by Dominguez Perez liner, and now Arjun simply played a check, simply pick up now this pawn. After king to g6, he simply went for the fully endgame stage. Good choice, I would say, because white king is, of course, a little bit exposed always to some checks by the queen. So queen to g3, queen takes g3, and f takes g3 leads now into really fully endgame stage where white is up the exchange. Black has an extra pawn, but these are weaknesses. There's always vulnerable to the attack by white. So here I think it's a completely winning endgame here for Arjun. King to g5, rook to e3, king to g4, going of course with the king closer to the action, knight to g5, and now when here Dominguez Perez liner left now the defense of the pawn, here Arjun went with rook to e5. Even if you step back to d3, pardon me, to e6 here to protect here your pawn on c5, still white can go with king to d3. You can pick up this one, but now this one is vulnerable. Maybe you can protect it, but now this one is hanging. This one is now weak. You cannot even push it to f5. So again, completely busted position for Dominguez Perez liner. And for rook to e5, that's why f5 by Dominguez. We have now rook to c5 by Arjun. a4, rook to a5, and now we have knight to h3, because you cannot even go with king to g3, again with the same problem, rook to f5. First of all, white would take out this pawn, and this one is weak anyway, so again, game over here for black. After rook to a5, we have now knight to h3, we have now rook takes a4, king takes g3, and here Arjun found the beautiful endgame idea. Rook to a3, you have to now protect the knight, and now rook takes h3 simply wins the game on spot, because after king to f3, there's nothing that can be done. Here, this king is holding this pawn, this one is marching, the king will also, of course, support, this one will be lost eventually. Game over here for Dominguez Perez liner, which of course means that Arjun Ergaisi won the game. And what does this win mean for the tournament? With this win, believe me or not, India has become the champion of the Chess Olympiad in 2024. Congratulations to Team India, really deserved win. What actually happened, Praggnanandhaa lost his game against Wesley So, but Gukesh won his game on the first board against Fabiano Caruana, which is a huge result, and Vidit Santosh Gurati managed to get the draw with the black pieces on the fourth board against Levon Aronyan. Now India has won their match, which, as I said in the beginning, we had this situation where India is now even 4 points better than Team USA, and I think China will win their match against Uzbekistan, which means that after round 10, China will still be 2 points behind India. But in the direct duel, we know that India won their game against China with this epic game played by Gukesh on the first board against Wei Ji, which is almost impossible anymore for China to make anything, because this Zonberger additional criteria that India is getting, these are the points that you gain by winning some matches, and you get all of the points that you played against your opponent. So now India has gained all of the points also that China has made. So it means now India is now the winner of this epic chess event. Congratulations, fully deserved. They lost only one game, and that was today's game by Praggnanandhaa. All of the other games ended with a draw or with a win by India. Great, incredible, immortal performance. Really, they're so young. I can see them dominating the chess world for the next 10-15 years for sure. They're still not, I think, peaked in their level. They will have, I think, still progress, but they're already so strong and have now the beautiful throne of the Chess Olympiad in 2024. So Great, great. Congratulations again. We'll, of course, cover also later the beautiful gameplay by Gukesh against Fabiana Caruana. Also epic battle in which Gukesh won the game, as I said. But now let's praise also here Arjun Ergais's game. Incredible game. And this was now the decisive game of this round 10 in the epic derby between India and Team USA. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Really tough battle between India and USA. If you want to see some other beautiful games that we have covered by Team India, especially, here are some links of some games that we have analyzed before. And if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos. And what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.